Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was a pop culture phenomenon. It revitalised and popularised skater culture, it put a spotlight on pop punk music, and it blazoned the trail for many more extreme sports games. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater certainly wasn't the first extreme sports game, but it was the first one to garner mainstream appeal. The publishers, Activision, capitalised on this newfound interest with similar games such as Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX, Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarding, and even the unsung gem Wakeboarding Unleashed with Sean Murray. Activision even created a separate division for their games, named Activision 02. EA also joined the bandwagon, creating EA Big.
EA Sports Big.
An extreme sports alternative to EA Sports. Whilst EA Sports is stuffy, clinical and based on simulation, EA Big had games like FIFA Street and NBA Street, games focused on eccentric and outlandish arcadey fun. For me though, the greatest jewel in EA Big's crown and the greatest game in the explosion of extreme sports games from the early 2000s is this, SSX Tricky.
This is gonna be very, very interesting.
Sequel to the PS2 launch title, Tricky adds a whole new dimension of personality, originality and style, and in this video I'll be detailing 6 reasons why SSX Tricky is the best extreme sports game. Point 1. Personality. SSX Tricky has bags of personality. It's that garish, in-your-face attitude so emblematic of the 90s and early 2000s, inspired by Jerry Springer, South Park, American Wrestling and Jackass. Though thankfully SSX Tricky hasn't aged quite as badly as any of those. Most extreme sports games were somewhat based in reality, having the player pick from a range of professionals from within the game's given sport. SSX Tricky on the other hand doesn't bother with that. Instead it opts for a more colourful and exaggerated cast of characters, each with their own nationality, ethnicity and cultural quirks. Its character roster is more in line with a Street Fighter or a Tekken rather than with a Tony Hawk's or a Matt Hoffman. They are silly and stupid, their depictions are very surface level and that's very much on purpose. They fit in perfectly with the game's larger than life ethos.
Give me that sweet stuff!
Point 2. The voices. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot about the characters is this. They're voiced by some pretty famous folk. There's David Arquette as Eddie.
It's like taking candy from a baby.
Lucy Liu as Elise.
Don't break anything on the way down, chicken legs.
Macy Gray as Sia.
Now that's Funko-matic.
Billy Zane as Brody.
This is a hoot.
Do you play the game?
No, but geez, I hope they give me one.
Meanwhile, whilst you're hitting the slopes, you are accompanied by commentary from Razel, ex-member of The Roots and professional beatboxer who worked with Bjork on her 2004 album Medulla. Take a listen.
How you doing out there? This is Razel, and you're welcome to Garibaldi.
The game even comes with a DVD featurette that has recordings of each of the cast coming in and doing their voice lines. I miss this sort of stuff. Does anyone remember the making of DVD that came with Metal Gear Solid 2?
いわゆる人間が作り出した怪獣なんですよね。で
Point 3. The music. Another A-list inclusion to the game, and the reason behind the game's name is Run DMC and their perennial hit, It's Tricky. Aside from the title track, most of the music is ambient techno composed by John Morgan. According to IMDb, this is one of only 2 projects he did the soundtrack for, the other being the pretty obscure campy sci-fi known as Earthlickers, a film I have never heard of but I am now desperate to see. One thing I love about the music is how it closely synchronises with the performance. Play conservatively and you get the normal soundtrack. However, if you keep landing special tricks, you will feel this super large special meter on the right and eventually you hear this. This brings me on to my next section. Point 4. The Uber tricks. Okay, so the best thing about the game and what separates it from its predecessor are the Uber tricks. Check out these crazy things. They're completely ridiculous and stupid, they rack up a load of points, and while they can be easy to pull off, they can be pretty difficult to land due to their long animations. In fact, that's the real key to success in this game. Timing. There's no elaborate combos in SSX, instead the winners and the losers are separated by pushing the limits of exactly how many tricks, spins, flips and Uber moves the player can squeeze into each jump. This design philosophy is true of both the game's modes, being Race, a set of 3 heats to see who can get down the mountain the fastest, and Show Off, where the player tries to rack up a high score. The special meter is important in both modes, because the special meter can also be used as a boost, increasing your speed in races, and the special meter allows players to rip off these high-risk uber moves. The game takes this mechanic one step further, with the 6 letters spelling out the word tricky at the top of the special meter denoting how many uber tricks the player has successfully landed. Land 6 uber tricks to fill all the letters and have your special meter stay full for the rest of the run. That means unlimited boost in a race and unlimited opportunities to try and fail landing more uber tricks in Show Off. What really helps the special meter shine though is this, 0.5 levels. Much like the character roster and the uber tricks, the levels in this game can get pretty extreme. There's the opener, Garibaldi, full of generous ramps to help the player get used to pulling off big tricks. Mesa Blanca, which has these deadly ice patches and an abandoned railway line. Mercury City Meltdown, where the player grinds around a nighttime cityscape. And my personal favourite, the Tokyo Megaplex, a neon-soaked playground of water slides, pinball bumpers, boost pads, and these super powerful fans that jettison the player 300 feet in the air. Whilst the majority of these levels were found in the original SSX game, they've each had a minor makeover. I also love how each level's been adapted between race and show-off mode. Show-off mode adds these red and white rails and these massive yellow ramps, whilst the races include trick boosts and speed boost pickups. I also love how multi-layered these levels are. They remind me a lot of levels from 2D Sonic games, where each level has a default route that most players will go through time after time, but there are also these more advanced routes, secrets and shortcuts. In SSX Tricky, they are typically signposted by these blue or red screens. Smash through them and you're taken somewhere off the beaten path. Who knows, maybe you'll run into some penguins. Oh, and that's my review of SSX Tricky, my favourite extreme sports game. Some other really good extreme sports games are Jet Set Radio Future, 1080 Avalanche, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, 2, 3, 4 Underground, the new Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 remake, and the previously mentioned Wakeboarding Unleashed. Oh yeah, and Aggressive Inline as well, that's a great game too. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and I hope to see you next time. Bye!